Hello and welcome back to Unbiased Magic Reviews, your most trusted YouTube magic review channel. Today I have a card magic review for you. We're going to be taking a look at R. Paul Wilson's Unmarked Miracle. Let's take a look at it.
My card was the Four of Clubs. How close did you get?
I swear I picked the
Unmarked Miracle is one of the tricks I pull out if I want to fool other magicians. It works great with lay people as well. We each think of a card and they try to figure out what card I'm thinking of. They take that card out and then I take out the card I think they're thinking of, and guess what? We're both right. They actually seem to read your mind.
What was yours?
7 of that.
I got it, just like that.
This system allows you to know exactly what card has been taken out of a deck and is absolutely surefire and far easier than any other method that you might be aware of. It really is a practical way to perform this type of effect with any deck of cards, any borrowed, shuffled deck.
All right, so you guys took a look at the trailer. So this effect, Unmarked Miracle by R. Paul Wilson, is a variation of Al Karan's Double Thought. For $15, you can get this 22-minute instructional where R. Paul Wilson will teach you the ins and outs of it. So if you're not familiar with Al Karan's Double Thought effect, the card plot is basically that the magician is thinking of a card, the spectator is thinking of a card, you read each other's minds and take out each other's cards out of the deck respectively. The original effect relied on a marked deck, which is why R. Paul Wilson has called this the Unmarked Miracle, because here you're not using a marked deck, you're using just a regular deck, which is really nice. This card plot is very prolific and there are countless versions out there. If you guys have been following along with my magic reviews, then you're probably familiar with many of my own reviews here where I've reviewed many of the different versions of this effect. Just to name a few, Pitt Hartland's effect, which was called Thought Exchange, I did review it and I did demo it on my review of his book, In Order to Amaze. If you don't remember, you can go back and watch that review and you can see it there. The method relied on a memorized deck. I also did briefly review Matt Baker's version called Casablanca on his At the Table lecture. And when I initially saw the trailer of this, I thought the method was going to be very similar to Paul Vihil's version called Diplopia or Paul Cummings' Tapalac. But I was very pleasantly surprised that the method was totally different. The method was actually inspired by the TRS system, which Steve Forte just recently published in his Gambling Sleight of Hand Volume 2, which if you're into any kind of gambling demos or whatnot, then you've probably picked up these books or you're probably thinking about picking them up. At the end of Volume 2, there's a section there which is called Pseudo Gambling Stunts, where the TRS system is described in detail and he gives you an effect there to use it for. So it's something you may be interested in picking up if you don't have already. So getting back to the Unmarked Miracle, a couple of questions you probably have about the effect. How difficult is it? I will tell you guys, it's actually really simple to learn. I was pleasantly surprised that the method is so much easier than what you would expect if you're familiar with Paul Vihil's Diplopia or Paul Cummings' Tapalac. Here, there is really no memory at all necessary and there's no math, which a lot of people will be happy about that, because having to keep a running total of numbers in your head while you're performing is not a simple thing to do. Here, I learned the method literally in 5 minutes. And I've been performing this all this last week at work and getting really good reactions from it. It's super easy. Paul Wilson markets this as a magician fooler, and I could see how it would be, but it definitely plays really strongly for lay people. So definitely something you're going to enjoy using. It uses in a totally ungaffed deck, shuffled, impromptu, and it can be easily repeated. Everything can be examined, which is really nice. These are like the types of card effects that you should pay attention to because they can be easily added to your repertoire and they're very strong. This is a very strong effect. The teaching on this downloadable is pretty good. I would say that Paul Wilson does a good job teaching the method. He goes over it very slowly. It's easy to understand. He goes over the whole routine with you. The one aspect I didn't like was when it got to the part where he tells you that you have to use a peak. He just briefly touches on it and just briefly demonstrates how he does his peak, but he doesn't teach it to you. In fact, he tells you that he's going to put out another download in the future where he's going to teach you his peak. And I thought that was the biggest negative of this project because I thought that he really should have taught that to you, because he does give you other options. He gives you other options of having the spectator actually make a selection, take a card out of the spread and then return it and control the card and stuff like that, or use a classic force. But I think that this effect is strongest when it seems like the spectator is merely thinking of a card, you're merely thinking of a card, and then you read each other's minds to get each other's cards. I think that's what makes the effect strongest. If they actually have to take a card out of the spread, I think you lose a certain aspect of the effect. That's why I think the effect is strongest when you just say stop. All right, remember that card. Now you're just thinking of a card. So you actually didn't take a card out of the spread. It makes it feel like they just randomly thought of a card. Now, personally, myself, I use a peak that I learned from Michael Vincent a few years ago from The Classic Magic of Michael Vincent. If you have those DVDs, then you probably know that. It's like Old Faithful to me. I always go back to it. It's super easy, looks super fair, and that's what I always use. Some of my friends also like Ryan Schlutz's Pivotal Peak. So something else I tell you guys you may want to take a look at. If you don't do a peak, then you may be disappointed when you get this because you're really not going to learn that there. But that being said, there are other options that he does give you. And for me, that's probably the biggest negative aspect of this download. Overall, I would tell you guys, I think it's definitely worth it. I would rate this as 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's an excellent effect, and I think it's an excellent version or variation of Al Coran's Double Thought, and so I would recommend it to you guys. As always, if you have any questions about this effect or anything else that I review, please just leave me a comment below. Thanks for tuning into my reviews, guys, and I'll see you on the next review.